Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Journey, episode 2. This is our weekly journal podcast-esque video series where Jenkins and I just talk about our pubs and how pubs are going and what's good, what's not good, and just kind of like documenting the process of trying to climb MMR and reach those ephemeral and sort of fleeting goals. Because if there's one thing that I've noticed, Jenkins, it's that no matter who is number one on the leaderboard, they're only number one for a couple of days. And then there's another person. There's always somebody trying to climb higher. So, yeah.
It's true, man. People in this community, we are obsessed with the number. And I get it. It's because there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, there's TI. You always hear about the people who climb the leaderboards. They get some ranked games with, PPD. They get noticed. They get brought up into a tier 2 team. And then all of a sudden the next year they're tier 1 and playing at TI. It's kind of like, I think we had this discussion before, Donnie, but imagine if you could just queue into a game of baseball, something like that, and not have to go to these like pickup house leagues in your city. And you could actually just play baseball with people that are exactly at your skill level. There wouldn't need to be colleges and there wouldn't need to be like varsity leagues and things like that, because you could just scout. You could just scout people in those like pickup games, those like pubs, you know what I mean? Like if you could, we're actually really lucky in esports to be able to have matchmaking, and going from the point where you're just playing for fun to the point where you're literally making millions of dollars off of the game is actually achievable for the average person, so long as they are, good enough at the game.
It's an entirely merit-based system, right? It's exclusively,
yeah.
It's a exclusive meritocracy. So at least, I mean, obviously there's politics at the higher levels. Once you've been on a few teams and you kind of know people in the scene, but as far as like somebody who's just trying to make it, it's 100% merit-based, and you prove that merit by having a very high number, right?
Yep, and you can break into the upper echelon by having a high number. That's the thing, is it's not unachievable. It's something that I've seen happen a long time, or a lot, right, over a long period of time. And so I think for a lot of people, it's not something that they are thinking about consciously. It's just that is always in the back of your mind. I know a lot of the Dota players that I've talked to in real life, like my brother-in-laws, my girlfriend, people that I've met at events. It's kind of one of those things that, like, if you could do it, you probably would, because it's kind of cool. It's like in the back of your mind. And the fact that it feels not as impossible as, getting into the NFL or something like that. Right. It feels like something that could actually happen if you did get your number high enough. That is definitely something that drives people to be obsessed with the number. And at a certain point, it's like the number itself becomes more important than any of that, because you've just set this goal for yourself. I think that's a very human flaw sort of thing. It's definitely not great. It like becomes an addiction. It's like, you drink to avoid the pain, and then at a certain point,
it's podcasts we're talking about that.
You're just drinking to drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, let's
talk about pubs. Let's talk about pubs.
No. Let's talk about motivation. I think that motivation is kind of an interesting place to start, because I think that both you and I have somewhat different, somewhat similar motivations for playing, and I think that the motivation for playing is kind of like a good place to sort of like formulate your approach to playing the game from, because if you know why you're playing, then it's very easy to kind of like set goals and practice towards accomplishing those. Whereas if you don't know why you're playing and you're just like you're talking about, everybody sort of wants to, be a TI winner, right? But is that really your motivation? There's got to be something else, because you can't just be going for that, because it is so unrealistic, because it is very hard to attain. And while it is kind of like dangling a carrot in front of you, it can't actually be your main motivation because it's just so unrealistic.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what my motivation is, and this is going to sound kind of depressing, but basically I see life as having no inherent purpose, I guess.
Okay.
And I don't mean that in a negative or positive way. I just mean it in a completely neutral way. It's like the universe doesn't really give that much of a shit about us.
Right.
And I think a lot of the time that I have searched for meaning personally, I've come up not finding anything. And more, I'm starting to realize that just living in the moment and enjoying life, just having a good time every day is something that makes me very happy. You know what I mean? As a person, it's like that is what I have found, that if I just do what I want every day, I just wake up the next day excited to be alive. If I look for meaning, I get very depressed, I get very anxious, I get very scared to actually go out and live. And with Dota, it is just something that makes me quite happy to play. There are other games that make me very happy to play, but Dota is something that's, I can play 100 games and still, still want to play the 101st. And generally, I've just always been motivated to be very good at the main thing that I'm doing. Like, I'm competitive. I think a lot of people just have that built in. They're just like competitive. There's like the younger brother theory where a lot of people who are like younger siblings, they watch their older siblings growing up, that they grow up very hyper competitive because they see their
it's nature, right? You have to,
right? Yeah, exactly. So basically, my motivation for playing Dota is just that I think that I have not apexed in terms of my skill, and I just want to see how high I can go. And I'm basically enjoying the ride right now. I'm enjoying the fact that I'm part of this community. I'm enjoying the fact I'm part of the Dota Alchemy community. I'm enjoying the fact that I can go to events and cast and do all these cool things. And I think if I try to like attribute any higher meaning to it, it's just something that if I try to apply any higher meaning to anything that I'm doing, it just makes me very depressed because I find that there isn't one. I know that's a very depressing thing, but I'm happy. I'm happy with where I'm at.
Sure.
Thinking this way.
Yeah, totally. Is this where I tell you what my motivation is?
Yeah, that's I guess I was leading to that. I just kind of assumed.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I think it's something that's kind of changed, and it continues to change depending on like where I'm at personally, I guess. I wouldn't say it's impossible for somebody who's like in their 30s to be a professional gamer, but I don't really care that much. Again, it's like it's one of those things where like if I had the opportunity to play TI, of course I would play because I want to prove myself to myself on the biggest stage possible in like whatever I'm doing. That's always been. That's how it was in all the sports I played.
Do you have older siblings?
No, I don't. I just have always been this way. I've always wanted to be the best at anything that I do. But I think a lot of that, and so this is something that has kind of been a realization for me over the last couple of years, and even more so in the last maybe like 12 months or so, which is that I've always wanted to be the best, but not necessarily been willing to put in the work to do it, and just kind of assumed that like natural talent, because I don't know, I've just been naturally good at a lot of things that I've tried in my life, and I've been shit at some for sure, but I feel like I have, at least with like athletics and competition, I've always been pretty just naturally good, and so I've definitely skated by a little bit on that.
Not me. I was the last place fat ass in like every track and field event.
So, I mean, that's kind of interesting because obviously, like, I mean, I know that you work extremely hard at being good at Dota. And I wouldn't necessarily say that I do. I think even more recently, I've been realizing that I have sort of like an ego attached to the state of my gameplay, but it's almost like an unrealistic one because I realize that I'm like, out of the moment, I realize I'm like not really trying that hard. So why would I be that good? Right. But I just like expect myself to be there. And so I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting realization to have. But ultimately, I think my motivation for continuing to play is just that I like the challenge. And I think like you, I don't feel like I've apexed at all. I don't feel like I've even come close. And so it's kind of interesting to just kind of explore that to varying degrees of success.
The people who really impress me are the people that go and they work some like hard ass job and they come home and play 2 matches a night and they're like immortal top 300.
Yeah.
Like Stan Kings and stuff like that. It's like, well, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you do that? I don't understand.
I know. I remember there was some post on our Dota 2 like a year ago or something like that. There was like a dude who was married, had like a 3-year-old kid or something like that. And he was like, I don't know, top 500 or something like that. He was like I think he was like an Offlane Abaddon spammer or something like that. But it was one of those things where it's like he works like corporate America, and then his just sort of downtime is like relaxation is Dota 2 every evening or so, and he's just playing between 5 and 10 games a week and wins like 70% of them because he probably values that time playing Dota more than most people.
What was that podcast you linked me with Joe Rogan? What was the dude's name?
Naval Ravikant.
Right, the tech billionaire or whatever. That guy's got things figured out, but he was saying that he thinks people should have, one main focus in life, and then everything else should just be tertiary and just kind of to ease your mind and to relax you. And if it's not contributing to your like mental health, don't spread yourself too thin to do those things, because it's not your main focus. And that's why it's always impressive when you have these people who are working like corporate jobs and they come home and they de-stress by being immortal at Dota.
I know, right?
How smart are you that you de-stress with this?
Yeah,
this is not your focus, because I think people naturally do that. They'll focus on one thing. It's like, you know what? Let me get into like a bit of a tangent here, but Nusham is obviously an incredible Dota player. Barely plays the game, still an incredible Dota player, very much like Z Freak. We played Diablo 3 for when I was playing on a team with him. We played Diablo 3 just in our off time, just for fun, a couple hours every day. And I swear to God, he's so good at that game that he carried us. They had these like rifts, and you would compete to get higher and higher rifts, and there was like these dungeons that you would complete, and monsters would get harder and harder depending on the level of the rift.
Right.
So the whole shtick was like, okay, let's see how high we can go without dying. And basically, we were playing for fun. And because he was telling me, oh, Jenkins, you need to build this, you need to put this gem in this item. Like, he was micromanaging me like crazy. We were playing with Mari, who was our other teammate at the time. He was micromanaging her like crazy. She's better at games than I am, so she didn't need as much micromanagement as I wasn't doing anything. We got like top 20 or something for the class combination that we had in the world in Rifts, because he was carrying me that hard. And we were playing casually. And it was the most mind-blowing thing to realize that Nusham is just the type of guy that he plays a game and he's just fucking good at it. He just gets really good at it casually because he enjoys that. For me, it has to be my main focus. And I think there's, different learning styles and stuff, and a lot of people are different. Maybe I'm just making excuses. He just puts in a lot of effort. But everything that we would play, he would always be genuinely very, like, no bullshit good at it. You know when you're like, you play Smash Bros. And you're just like, oh yeah, I'm probably pretty good at Smash, and you couldn't actually compete at a tournament by any means. Like, it's you feel like you're good because you're playing with a group of friends who also suck. Yeah, I thought it was like that with Nusham for a while, but then we played Diablo and it's like, oh, we're top 20, top 30 or whatever because he's just carrying me. Feels bad, man.
I mean, do you think that I would say that probably he spreads himself less thin than you do.
I think so. I think he does a lot of.
It's probably like he's just like
game.
Super into that game, and that's why he's good. I mean, obviously there's some sort of natural talent and ability to like break down a problem and solve it, but I would assume that it's probably just like he just generally enjoys the process of learning how to do something and how to be good at it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I learned to enjoy learning.
Right.
Within the past year, honestly, with like Dota Alchemy and Pugna and talking to other pro players, like actually talking and listening. It has helped me enjoy the process of learning. I realized for a long time in playing pro, I was very reluctant to actually learn. It was like, shoving a watermelon through like a brick wall. Like, I would eventually you'd get pieces of the watermelon through like the little cracks in the wall, and I'd learn something, but I wasn't open to it.
Right.
And I'm finally, taking these like coaching sessions with people, and they tell me something, and it's like, it's so fun to hear something you've never heard before and go and actually apply it and see your number go up.
Right.
It's a long process, and usually when you first hear something, it doesn't feel good, but it is very rewarding after a while. And I've actually not felt that in Dota for a long time, because I didn't realize how unopen to it I was, even as like a professional player.
Yeah,
such a slow process for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of Dota is just generally, at least like, once you have grasped the basics of the game, generally you kind of come up with like an idea of the game and how you like to play it, what you think is good, what's winning you games. And I think that everybody wants to hold on to their idea of what's good, like a vice grip, basically. It's
such a balance. Like, you want to open it up sometimes and close it off other times.
Yeah, it's actually incredibly arrogant to think that everything about the game and how it should be played. And I think that that's how everybody, myself included, approaches the game most of the time, which is like, it's like, okay, well, I've played, X number of games on this hero, or, and this item build has worked for me 10 or 15 times. So clearly it is the only way to do things, and everybody else is wrong. It's like, you know what? There's probably 350,000 to 400,000 people that play Dota every month, unique. And you're probably, even if you're in the immoral bracket, you're still like, top 5 to 10,000 in the world.
Yep.
Like that's a lot of people that know other stuff.
It's a lot of people. You want to hear like a cool little tidbit that I heard recently when I took a coaching session with Husky, who's like he's like a rank 55 role player. So I was just like, I'm going to learn what entails like playing a good 5 in pubs and competitive or whatever. He told me this concept of the bottom rune spot and why it's so much more important to ward that than the top rune spot. And it's because if you're in the laning phase and you ward the bottom rune spot, the mid laner can just walk up like 2 feet and see what the top rune is. And then if they see the bottom rune with a rune ward, then you basically have vision on both runes. So it's like there's this difference between the rune spots that as an offlaner and as generally like a side lane player, I wasn't thinking about. Like, imagine if a Pudge gets a haste rune and you have a rune ward on the top rune because, hey, they're both runes. Who cares? I'll just put it on the top of the top rune spot. And he gets a haste rune bot. You can't just walk down and see the Pudge with the haste or see the haste rune there and avoid the gank. But if you have one rune ward bot and you can just walk up top and see that there's a haste and see that somebody grabbed it, you can avoid every single rune gank mid from one single ward. That blew my mind. I learned that like yesterday.
Yeah, I mean,
that blew my mind.
That's something that I've been doing and thinking about for a long time, but then sometimes I'll just forget that I know that this is a fact. It's way better to ward the bottom one, and then I'll ward the top, and a couple weeks later I'll be like, wait, why am I warding the top? Like, I should be warding the bottom.
There's no point. There's no point, actually. It really is. It's so close. And it's funny because little tidbits of information like that in the games where it does matter, it can be so impactful that it can be the difference between winning and losing a game. And that's why it's really hard to see what is winning top players' games, because it's a whole combination of a lot of little things like that, where they're just getting a little bit more information or a little bit more of a probability of seeing some information in a game. And just consistently, they're winning more games because of choices like that. They're not warding the top rune, they're warding the bottom rune because you can just walk and see the top rune. I was not doing that. Yeah. I straight up was not doing that as a 5 role support. I can make the excuse that I'm not a 5, but I just wasn't thinking about that information because, I don't know, there's a lot to the game. You can't just think of everything.
Yep, exactly. Speaking of the game, how have your games specifically been this week?
They've been okay. I've I've climbed from like low 6K to almost 7K. I'm like 6.9K right now, which is great because my goal was 7K. So I'm definitely going to reach my goal pretty soon. But I feel like for the past week, I've been playing like kind of apathetically for whatever reason. Going back to like the Joe Rogan podcast, I really think that my mind is not in great order right now. Just talking about it like this does help. I've been trying to write stuff down. I wrote on a whiteboard before we talked and just wrote out all the stuff that I need to do. That definitely helps. Like you have Jordan Peterson says like do your dishes, clean your room. Like if your life is cluttered, your mind will be cluttered. And my mind is definitely in a cluttered space. To give you an example, I was opening up a tea bag, and you know how they have them like the little baggies, and then you peel it open and then you drop the tea bag in your drink. I put the baggie, like the trash, in my tea and then drop the tea bag in the garbage. So I'm just sitting there thinking, holy fuck. If this is Dota, I'm just feeding a kill right now. that thought. Like,
right.
Your mind just sometimes goes into these states where you're not thinking absolutely straight. And luckily for me, I'm still winning pubs recently just because autopilot's carrying me enough to be slightly above 51% win rate. I'm also picking overpowered heroes and getting kind of lucky with teammates. So I am winning.
Also, luckily you're not like driving or something like that because, like I notice that sometimes even just like in life where
it's true.
You'll just
it's
like
scary, man.
Like the teabag thing, or you'll just kind of like be lost in thought and you're just like, oh shit, like I didn't have right away and I just went at the stop sign, or like I don't remember the last like 5 times I took off my shoes or put my wallet over on this counter that I just like autopilot put my wallet over here and now I can't find it for like 10 minutes and you're just like, what am I doing right now? I'm spending 10 minutes looking for a wallet that I literally never lose because I put it in the same place every time and I just didn't do it this time.
I like to call them like invasive, useless thoughts where you just are constantly thinking about so many things, but because, I don't know, anxiety or you just have a lot on your plate, but you're thinking them at such a base level that they're just useless. Like they don't do anything because other thoughts interrupt them before you come up with anything meaningful from the thoughts. So you're just constantly thinking the same useless bull crap, and then more useless bull crap is interrupting the useless bull crap, and it's all shit. It's all just shit in your brain. Yeah. And I actually wrote something for this a little bit, but I was thinking about just the fact that this is me trying to essentially get back to the point where I'm winning pubs and feeling confident in my play, but basically, I was thinking that, going back to the whole universe being inherently neutral and not caring that you exist, I also think that if you look out to the universe, you'll look out and see a lot of disorder. And if you look at your life, you'll see a lot of disorder. If you think about your thoughts, you'll feel a lot of disorder. Like shit can happen in your life to complicate things at any moment, right? So if you're worried about that, nothing's going to stop you from that being true. Like that is correct no matter what. And I think that's why exercises like cleaning your room and doing dishes and writing things down helps, is not because it is actually applying order to the disorderly. It's more that you feel like you can get a hold of things. You can actually grasp the disorder and make something of it. It's like a confidence exercise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you just feel like, when you meditate or when you write things down or whatever, that because you're applying order to the disorderly there, whenever it comes and bites you in the ass in the future, you can just do it again. You're fine. You'll be able to deal with it. It's more of like just a mental blockade that exists for you. You just have to have some epiphany where it's like, okay, I can do this. And that's kind of what I'm searching for right now. I'm just trying to get to that point where I feel that ability to apply order again. And that's how I'm gonna get 7K, man. That's it.
Dude, I mean, that right there is like the crux of everything that we're trying to do with Dota Alchemy, right? Which is to be able to sort of create a formula where people can go on a losing streak and be like, boom, I fixed it. And then suddenly your losing streak's over. But it's so hard. And, we're both you and I are still searching for that. But like, even in the last 3 days, I went on a 5-game losing streak, picking heroes that I play a lot, that I think I'm pretty good with, and I just felt like I had zero control over every single game. And then
that's how I'm feeling, man. That's how I'm feeling.
And then I played 3 games in the last 24 hours, and I felt like my team could have literally been like, I don't know, like dogs, like no opposable thumbs, sitting at their like owner's computer, just like licking their keyboard to hit their keys, and I would have been able to carry the game. It's like how did that happen? I don't know. But I do know that I would like to figure that out, and I'm trying to. And a couple of things that I did between the losing streak and the winning streak is that I played less, and I went back and I watched a replay, and then I actually just watched like a pro player game from their perspective in a pub and took notes. And I just took notes of stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool because that's not something that I normally do. But the effect, it's definitely like is it a cause and effect relationship, or is it just coincidence? Is it obviously 3-game winning streak after doing that is not enough data to say this is how you do it.
For it though. You feel it. You feel when you, that's the thing, is it's based on a feeling. And the problem for me is I had that feeling for a week straight where I felt like they could be dogs and I could be winning. And then just 3 days or whatever, maybe even a little bit longer, of just feeling like I have no control over the game. And it feels really bad to go from such a high to a low, like win or lose, you feel it.
Yep. It's so weird. And to that end, I just wanted to share a couple of notes that I wrote down from watching this game. And it was just like, I don't think I was even watching that good of a player necessarily. It was just like some like top 150 pub player. I don't think it was a pro or anything like that. And I was just kind of like switching around through perspectives and just watching them play for a little bit, seeing where they were on the map, just watching the mini map. And I noticed a couple things, just a couple little tricks that I've never known before. I didn't know that you could quell wards from smoke. That's pretty fucking cool. And that's actually a huge deal as a support who wards, because normally you go on a warding mission in smoke, you find a ward, and you're like, wait, do I reveal that I'm here and deward this with attacks? No, you just have a quelling blade, and you can deward it, and nobody will know. And then the other note was that I noticed that people bail more readily on fights if you can create pressure somewhere else. You don't have to, like, I think at least at Ancient and below, probably Divine below, probably even Low Immortal and below, people think that once you're in a fight, it's like last man standing. it's like true. All right, the fight has started and we are going to fight until there's literally nobody left on the other side. And that's why these fights drag on for like 3 minutes, because people are like buying back, TPing in, respawning, running back to the fight. And it's like, it's not about who's left. It's about, did you get something successful done from this fight, and now is there an objective that you can get? And so I noticed that like really good players will be like, cool, we got like a kill in their support, and now there's too many heroes here, and so I'm just going to leave and go push out a lane because there's 4 people here, and so see ya. Like, it's not like they won the fight necessarily, but they won the fight because they got the kill, and then they left and did something else too.
The TPs are important too. If you can force people to TP rotate, it's sometimes more important than killing them because they're just stuck in some area of the map that they don't want to be at.
Yeah.
They can't farm a jungle that's already farmed, or when there's 2 cores in one lane. Just leave. Don't give them a kill, and they get absolutely nothing from that.
Yeah. It's, I don't know, it's just cool. Like those little types of realizations can actually be a pretty big
warding thing. The warding thing, something that I learned recently is I was playing with I think Save Dota, and we were scrimming. We were playing on a team, and he said he put a ward on a cliff, and there was a sentry there dewarding it, like an enemy sentry. And he said, "Don't hit that sentry. They don't know that ward is there."
Right.
And I was just thinking, holy shit, the amount of times as a support that I've dewarded an uphill when it's just not necessary, because even though the sentry's there, you have to actually get vision of the uphill.
Right.
If you just put the ward down and leave the sentry there,
it's almost better.
It's like a double. It's like a bluff.
Yeah. It's almost better because they've already dewarded it, so there's no way there's a ward there. Yeah.
It's so good. And just learning things like that, it feels good, man. It feels good.
Definitely. Cool. Well, we're at like 30 minutes, so I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts about this week in pubs? We kind of talked a lot about stuff, but
yeah, this is all in relation to pubs, though. Like, this is what I think about going into pubs.
Yep.
This is how I figure out how to win. It's getting my mind straight. So
yeah, I think one thing that I do notice looking at my stats is that I've been dying a lot. Even though I've been playing almost exclusively position 5 support, I've been dying too much. So my goal for this next week is to die probably like 2 less times on average, and I think that'll probably translate into a big spike in win.
My goal is just to just think more clearly going into games. I'm just being so lazy with stuff like sentries, a Sand King, and when to cut the wave, and I just need to think more clearly.
Cool, man. Well, maybe that starts with uncluttering something else. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoyed episode 2 of The Journey. Let us know what you think about it in the comment section below, and you can listen to the audio version on our Anchor FM account, which is also going to be linked in the description. That's where we host Alchemy Answers as well. And as always, thanks for your support, watching our videos and sharing it with your friends and stuff like that. So we will see you next time.